Welcome back, everyone, to another Falcon and the Winter Soldier breakdown. So, we are going to get to episode 3. I said that this video might come out early because of reasons that I will not say, but yeah, let's get started. And also, I love this poster, so I'm going to use this for every single intro. So, like I said, stop before you continue because I always forget about the spoiler alert, and I know it's on Saturday, so I don't want to spoil people. So just make sure that you've watched the episode and that you're ready for what's coming because there's lots of stuff in this episode. Let's get going. So it actually opens with the episode doesn't really open with any spoilers actually. It actually opens with like a WandaVision style ad for this thing called the Global Reputation whatever Council. It opens with that and these people are basically people who help with people from the who have been blipped, not with the people who survived, but the people who are. So the Flag Smashers are basically against these people. But yeah, and John Walker is working with these people for some reason, and he goes to invade the same German guy from last episode who was helping. He actually owns a cafe, but it's kind of bad. He was harboring the Flag Smashers, so then John Walker comes in, and then the German guy spits in his face because he knows who he. And then John Walker gets really mad. And what I mean is this scene shows how John Walker is really gonna start flying off the rails here, as this does show later in the episode. So he ends up spinning, and then Lamar seems way more calmer than John is because if you remember, Lamar Hoskins or Battlestar, he told him last episode that you can't just punch your way out of problems, you know? So that's pretty much what Walker is trying to do here. So I think Lamar is going to be more easier. But yeah, but even though he is Walker's like sidekick, pretty much, he does like, and he does work for the government. He doesn't act like John. So just keep that in mind because it might come up later on in the series. But yeah, so over with Sam and Bucky, they go to visit Zemo, and he is alone. Also, when Zemo tries to talk to Bucky, the first word that he says to him, are the words that are used to control him, which I think I have all of them memorized now. Longing, rusted, 17, furnace, freight car, daybreak, homecoming, and then yeah, etc. I don't know the rest, but also they might not be in order, so just saying that. And then Zemo mentions that he knows that Bucky was cured in Wakanda by Shuri, which does have implications later, but I will get to that. If you watch the episode, then you know what I mean. So yeah. And then Zemo's able to escape pretty easily on his own, which it's kind of surprising because um literally this scene is way too easy for Zemo. He should have had to fight at least way more guards. Remember, Zemo is also in the military. He is just a normal human, but he was in the Sokovian military, so he knows how to fight people. Like he knows basic martial arts and stuff like that. So yeah, so he escapes really easy, and then as Bucky tries to explain to Sam what he told him, he just walks in and stuff like that. And then Sam mentions how, do you think that the Wakandans had forgotten about what he did? But yeah, because if you remember in Civil War, uh, Zemo framed Bucky for killing King T'Challa's father. So yeah, and that actually does come up later on in the episode, if you know what I mean. So yes, so watch the episode now. Anyways, um, apparently Zemo has been rich, even though, which is kind of even though Zemo is rich because he has like all these cars and stuff like that, and it's really confusing because Zemo has like in Civil War, Zemo seemed like dirt poor, almost. Well, not that poor, but like no, Zemo like wasn't really like. I guess in Civil War we never really saw much of Zemo, but it's kind of weird seeing Zemo rich now. Seeing that like he could have been like, even though he was arrested and stuff like that, like yeah, anyway, it's kind of weird. He also has this mask, which is where we finally see the purple mask, which is more accurate to his comic book costume, because this is his comic book costume. It looks really silly and weird, so I like better now that it's this one. Also, he has like the cool coat, which I like way better. But yeah, in the comics, also Zemo uses a classic like knight sword, so yeah. And then, so apparently Zemo explains that he before Age of Ultron, before Sokovia got smashed into the ground, um, he used to hunt down the remaining leaders of Hydra. So he used to do that because remember I said he was in the military. So yeah. Anyway, He also has his own butler, like Alfred or Jarvis from DC and Marvel. So yeah, which is kind of shocking. Anyway, because again, how I guess in Civil War we never really saw much of Zemo's like behind the light, even though we knew that he was fine. Like for example, how did Zemo's family die if they had a literal private jet to leave in? I guess like Zemo's like, I don't know, my private jet's mine. I'm not giving it to you guys. I don't know. Just ridiculous. Anyways, so he takes him in his private jet, and Bucky and Sam go in, and he's able to steal Bucky's notebook, and then Zemo is threatened by Bucky, which I will say though that Zemo might use this at some point to against Bucky, because remember he did the exact same thing in Civil War. Remember, Nakajima is this guy. Uh, Nakajima is the old man back in episode 1 from that Japanese bar. He was the guy who Bucky killed his son in that flashback where he killed the guy in Russia or Siberia, whatever. He killed someone there, and then that guy's his father. So he might use that again because remember he did this in Civil War. He knew that Tony Stark he knew that Stark killed to- he knew that Tony Stark's parents were killed by Bucky. So he used that to split up the Avengers, and he might use that again to his advantage because Zemo is a master manipulator, which is why he has one thing better than every villain. Loki is good at manipulating, but he isn't really as good as someone like Zemo. Thanos is good in power, but he only uses power. He doesn't really use any manipulation. So sometimes brute force does not always win the battles. That's the lesson here. Anyways, so he also has the same notebook that Steve Rogers used back in like 2014 when he was catching up on everything. Like for example, there's I Love Lucy, the moon landing, the Berlin Wall, Steve Jobs, Pisco, Thai food, Star Wars and Trek, Nirvana, Rocky 2, Trouble Man, and yeah, etc. So then Zemo and Falcon they kind of connect over music where Zemo's like, oh, it's a masterpiece, and then after that, Sam is like, yeah, Zemo's trash right here, but he has a good point. And then Bucky's all grumpy and he's like, I like 40s music because it's obviously the era where he's from. So I mean, he can't really explain. And then Zemo explains why he doesn't like superheroes because he explains how they become icons, and then after they become symbols, and then after people forget about their flaws, and then eventually bad things happen. Well, yeah, which I think can be applied to John Walker, but not to Captain America, because Captain America didn't like Steve Rogers never really had this issue. Like, don't get me wrong, he had flaws, but he was usually able to make the right decision based off of his heart. So Walker is not that person. Like I said earlier when I talked about Zemo's mastermind skills, um, Walker is more someone who uses brute force instead of Steve Rogers who tries to find out the truth. Like imagine if John Walker was Captain America during the Winter Soldier. I think he would have tried to kill Bucky rather than reason with him. So yeah, so that's what I mean by that. So they also mentioned Red Skull because Red Skull's a super soldier. Obviously, he has involvement in this. Even though his super soldier past is like behind him, he is still a super soldier because that's why his face is red. And that's why they call him Red Skull. Anyway, over with the Flag Smashers, they play soccer, and what's actually confuses me is that they actually give super soldier serum to these kids. Like, I know that actually sounds cool, but that's kind of crazy. Anyway, Carly Morgenthau has a relationship with this character, which I cannot pronounce her name, so I'm not going to bother saying it. And then also, I want to point out before we move on that this location may come up again because in the trailers, if you remember, I had this one video that got tons of views. Well, I mean not a lot because my channel hasn't grown yet, but anyway, so um one of the videos got a lot of views, and that video was diving into the details of this whole background scene. And now in the trailer back then, before the first episode even was out, I speculated that Steve Rogers could have been here, like in his deathbed or nursing home, but I think that's wrong now. I think this might be the Flag Smashers base, and then Bucky and Sam they go to attack them. I think that's probably what's gonna happen. That's most likely what's going to happen. Anyways, so yeah, they have a relationship, and she is like a mother to all of these other characters, and yeah. So now, Zemo takes Sam and Bucky to a country called Madripoor. It's not real, but I will mention that I will say that it has a lot of involvement with Indonesia. So basically, if you don't know about Southeast Asia, I'm gonna describe it now. So by China, you go down, and then there's Southeast Asia, and then once you have that, you have countries like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, and then Brunei, and then yeah, and then you also have Indonesia and East Timor. So in there would be Madripoor. Now Madripoor is by Indonesia, so if it was a real country in the world today, then I speculate that it could be somewhere in Indonesia, like somewhere where East Timor is, because it's on an island by Indonesia. But yeah, so, and it's also a major crime place, which means it has a lot of involvement with the X-Men, because Falcon is supposed to imitate a character. Okay, so Bucky's supposed to imitate the Winter Soldier. Zemo is supposed to be like, I guess, his Hydra leader, and then um Sam is supposed to imitate this person named Smiling Tiger, which is kind of weird. But anyway, Smiling Tiger is a character in the comics. He does show up in a lot of Madripoor slash X-Men storylines. So yeah. And then they arrive at a bar. Now, over you see these skulls right here. Actually, I have a better close up. So these skulls right here have been talked about a lot. Actually, a lot of people have been talking about these skulls in the second trailer that came out during the Super Bowl. I'll link those two videos at the end, the one that got a lot of views and the Super Bowl trailer, but it's not really that helpful. These skulls are primate heads. Actually, somebody said that they were skull heads. I think it was at New Rockstars made by Eric Voss. But yeah, he speculated that these were skull heads, but no, they're actually primate heads. Because remember, Madripoor is like a criminal place, so obviously they poach animals, like endangered animals, and there are a lot of primates and apes in Southeast Asia that are endangered, and they do get poached. So yeah, so that's probably the case. And Zemo goes to visit the owner of this club named Shelby, which is an X-Men character. Obviously, they actually flipped the gender on this character. In the comics, Shelby's actually an X-Men, and his power is supposed to be he's supposed to be able to like read computers. Obviously, the MCU version is way different. But yeah, so what ends up happening is Sarah ends up messing up the whole thing because remember, Sam's like undercover. So what ends up happening once Sarah calls him, what ends up happening is Sarah ends up calling him by his real name, which is Sam. And then after they basically realize, wait a minute, you're an imposter. So then is what ends up happening then is that they end up going, and then Sharon Carter ends up running into them. Now, I assume Sharon Carter is the one who killed Shelby because she does get shot before that, which obviously I'm not going to show on screen. And then um, Sharon Carter explains that after Civil War, because we never saw her since then. Like basically, the last time we saw her was in 2016, and now it's like 2025 or 24. Yeah, so that's like a long time. So basically, she said that. So during Endgame, all the people who were on Team Cap, they all got a pardon, but she did not get a pardon. So for example, Cap got pardoned for his help. Sam, and Bucky got pardoned, which was a big question because the government was kind of because before Falcon and Winter Soldier came out, we didn't really know what Sam and Bucky's like legal what they're gonna be up to now since like it's after Civil War and all that stuff. So yeah. And she also takes them to this club, and then she basically tells them how she was on the run and she went to Madripoor, and she basically became a black marks operative. And she does, and she is way more darker in this episode, which makes a lot of people speculate something that I'll talk about later. So yes, so Bucky goes and Sam and Zemo, even though you can't see them on the screen, they go to this like cabinet where well no, it's like a huge cabinet, and then it's on one of the like the port in Madripoor. So what ends up happening is they go to see a doctor who's working on super soldier serum. Now this doctor immediately recognizes Bucky because of his involvement on the super soldier serum. And he explains to Falcon that he used to work for Hydra, And then once Hydra disbanded, the CIA called him, and they had him do the Weapons Plus program, which is basically which is how Hulk gain his powers from that. So he was kind of a big involvement in the cryo snake thing, whatever. And then right after, he was working with the CIA for a long time until he got blipped in 2018. And then once he got blipped, when he came back, the U.S. They basically didn't want it to do this anymore. They basically put it on pause or something like that. So then what ended up happening is the power broker contacted him, because the power broker is actually the ruler of Madripoor. So the power broker, he contacted him, and then what ended up happening was he came over there, and then he started working for them. And also, he does have some involvement with Isaiah Bradley. So yeah, because remember, Isaiah says in episode 2 that people came into my cell, they took my blood. So yeah, so obviously he has something to do with this, because we're not finished with him yet. Anyways, and then also what ended up happening was he made 20 vials, but 8 of them were stolen by the Flag Smashers. So yeah, and then Zemo ended up killing him on the spot, which again I'm not gonna show. Anyways, Sharon Carter stops him. What ends up well, actually no, Sam stops him. But anyways, then a huge battle takes out because the Power Broker's bounty hunters. After Shelby got killed, basically there's been a bounty on Sam and Bucky now, so they need to escape Madripoor now. And now there's a problem because all of the bounty hunters are coming after you. So Sharon Carter buys them time, and this is what you can see in the trailer. And in the trailer, I do mention how a flying knee does not work, as she does do that on one of the bounty hunters, which makes no sense because a flying knee takes time to work on. So you have to be able to make a move like quick, and then you can end up hitting them and knocking them out. But I guess that these bounty hunters are just trash. Anyways, so they escape. Sharon Carter escapes, and her agent right here tells them that we got bigger problems, which makes a lot of people speculate that Sharon Carter, is the power broker, which does not make any sense at all, because I I do understand why people think that that's possible, but here's why I'm going to tell you why it's not the case. So Sharon Carter is a bounty hunter, not really a bounty hunter, but she lived in Madripoor. She went on hiding from the U.S. I don't think that she has any involvement with the power broker. In fact, my speculation is that the power broker has some sort of involvement with the Mandarin, all the way from Shang-Chi, which will come out later this year, which I'll obviously do a video on because I'm a martial artist, so I'm gonna react to all those fight scenes. So yeah, so when they so I don't think Sharon Carter is the power broker because number one, Sharon has the power broker seems to be someone who has been around for a long, long time. Like for example, someone who's been back from Iron Man, and then also, Sharon Carter is way more darker in this episode, so which does make a lot of people think that. But I don't think she's the power broker because it doesn't really make sense. Like, why would she be the power broker? Like, why would she help? Why would she help Sam and Bucky if they weren't involved in it? I think that the power broker is either someone who's high in like the U.S. like high ranking in the U.S. military, something like for example somebody or even high in like political terms, like for example someone like Thaddeus Ross, Thunderbolt Ross, because remember in Captain America Winter Soldier, which this show is mostly based off of, as they do make tons of callbacks to that. Um, when we do get that, what ends up happening then is there's a lot of high-ranking officials in politics, and they end up being revealed to be Hydra agents. So I wouldn't be surprised if the power broker is probably either just an entirely new character, or if it's someone high ranking in like the military or in like politics or somehow. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I don't think she's power broker, and I'm just gonna say that. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me, but if you do disagree with me, I just want you to know, tell me why you think Sharon Carter might be power broker in the comments. I think that Sharon Carter actually might have more connect or will eventually come back to the United States, because maybe in like season 2 or something of Falcon and Winter Soldier, she will, or maybe like throughout the whole series, she's gonna be on this arc where she slowly comes back from the dark and then she goes to the light. Anyway, Lamar and Walker. I was about to call him Steve. Oh my gosh. So Lamar and John, since they have no traces now or no leads on the Flag Smashers, they have no choice but to follow Sam and Bucky, which basically leads them to find out that they broke Zemo out of prison, which means now they're all on opposite sides. So eventually, once we get to the finale, it's gonna be chaos. You'll have Walker, you'll have Walker and Lamar on the same side trying to capture the Flag Smashers, and then you have Zemo obviously doing his own thing because obviously he's gonna betray them later on. Because obviously when I get to the finale, we'll see why. No, like when I meant to the finale of this episode, but yeah. So obviously you'll have Walker and John. You'll have John and Lamar doing trying to fight the Flag Smashers, basically straight up killing them, and then you also have Sam and Bucky trying to reason with them because I think that's probably what's going to happen. And then you have Zemo who's also going to try to kill them, but he also has a beef with superheroes. So obviously he's going to be like after everybody. He's going to have like guns pointed everywhere. Anyway, yeah. So over with the Flag Smashers, they basically do it. They basically raid something from the GRC, which is the ad from the first from the at the beginning of the video. So yeah, and then Carly pretty much explodes the whole thing with a bunch of people inside, basically killing them. And her partner here is horrified by it, which is also kind of scary. But yeah, now one detail I did forget to mention, my mistake, is that the super soldier serum that Dr. Negal, the guy who was working with Hydra and the CIA and then the power broker, he also said that he perfected the super soldier serum way better than Erskine. So basically, he wanted instead of making the super soldier serum jack up somebody really good, instead of like making them have abs and whatever, basically it's more subtle, which is why none of the Flag Smashers like who are male have abs or whatever. But yeah. Anyway, um, over with Bucky and Sam and Zemo. Uh, Bucky finds this weird bead on the ground. When I first saw this, I was confused because I remember recognizing this from somewhere, but I just my mind could not piece it together. My mind could not piece it together, and then I remembered it was a Kamoyo bead, as once the cameo shows up at the end. That's a Kamoyo bead, and they're basically used by the Wakandans. They're basically like high tech. They're basically like high tech iPhones, way better than the ones used in our time. But yeah, and then he finds another one. And then after that, this guard from Wakanda shows up. As you can see, she has a Kamoyo bead on her thing, on her wrist. Yeah. So, and she basically says that she's here for Zemo. And now, if you don't know who this is, I will tell you. But I will say though, when I first saw this, I did think it was a Okoye. But then after that, I remembered that this is actually Io from Civil War, Black Panther, and Infinity War. She actually has way more appearances than Shuri, and she has more appearances than Shuri, Nakia, and all the other major characters. Even though Io does not show up that much, even though she doesn't show up that much in the MCU, she still shows up in way more movies than some of the other major Wakandan characters. Like for example, Okoye was only in Black Panther and Infinity War and Endgame. But yeah, but Io was first introduced in Civil War as she was T'Challa's bodyguard. So yeah, we know that. So now that we know that, it's way easier now, and now we have like more info on that, which makes it a lot easier now because Io is like the second in command in the Dora Milaje. Okoye is at the number one, and then she's married to Wakabi, and then T'Challa is the king before Chadwick Boseman passed away, and then Shuri would be the next in line, which is speculated that she'll become the next Black Panther, and then M'Baku would be the leader of the Jabari. Nakia is probably now going to be a widow now that T'Challa is gone, but yeah, and yeah, um so Io showing up now provides lots of more conflict now between Zemo and now, because I speculate now the next episode that Bucky might have to fight Io. Because remember, they foreshadowed this earlier in the episode when Sam said, "Do you think that the Wakandans have forgotten about what Zemo did?" So Io right here, now brings up conflict between Sam, Bucky, and Zemo, because now she wants to bring Zemo back to Wakanda to pay for his crimes, but Bucky and Sam still need him. So obviously this is gonna bring some conflict. I think that this will escalate into a fight later on. I don't know if Io's alone or not, because sometimes the Dora Milaje they always do love to work together in groups. So it's possible that we could also see characters like Nakia, or because Nakia is part of the War Dogs, which is like a separate organization in Wakanda, and then there's Okoye, who's actually the leader of the Dora Milaje. Or it's possible that she's alone. But if she is alone, she's still gonna provide a huge fight, because remember, Io did lose to Corvus Glaive, and she did get knocked out, but Io is obviously going to provide lots and lots of stuff next episode, because now Wakanda is now in the picture now. Wakanda has woken up from its sleeping to get Zemo, and now there's going to be lots of conflict. Anyway, this episode was amazing. Thank you so much for your support, and please drop a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and stay tuned, because next week I will try to get the next episode out. No, I mean my episode for breakdown out earlier. Anyway, there should be the video on that's the video on the 170 view video on the leaked scenes, because they show up in future episodes. And yeah, subscribe.